shopping shoes. Hit the subway fare to Coney Island. Wonder wheel, cotton candy glaze, carousel organ, pause and dragon flame. Sand crusted boardwalk shoes, carny punks, Acosta, hot dog vendor. Clouds crash above Atlantic waves. Say la vie, no use cursing the rain. Decorated kites fly by, hung on string. Surf's up, Nathan swimming in the bay. Waving bye, bye, bye at past midnight. Something's always in the way. And it'd be nice, so nice to run and not think twice of living our lonely days. Wipe out on the white capped waves, spinning upside down. Downtown where burnouts, baby, flowing through our veins. Red blood to sing. Decorated kites fly by, hung on string. Surf's up, Betty's bunny floats away. Bye, bye, bye at past midnight. Something's always in the way. And it'd be nice, so nice to run and not think twice of living our lonely days.
Whiskey Autumn, thank you for joining us here at the Cosmic Collective.
Thanks for having us.
I'd like to start out just by going down the line, introduce yourselves, super simple, what instrument you play. We'll start from there.
I'm Jason Patton. I play bass and some bass keyboards and some vocal stuff.
Greg Lout. I write the songs and I play guitar and keyboards and sing.
Matty Schelling, drums, percussion, digital drums, rolling octopad, vocals, finger snaps, claps.
A jack of all trades, if you will.
That's right.
Lots of things with his hands.
That's right.
It's better that you say that instead of I just play the hands.
You want to give the right impression.
Yeah. So you guys were just on the road for a little bit for the Ice Cream in the Sun tour, right? You're just out in the Midwest for a bit.
Yeah, we were on a 10-day swing out in the Midwest, which was great.
How'd that go for you? Good?
Overall, pretty good. In some of these spots, it was our first time ever going there, so we were kind of introducing ourselves to the people, but we at least made solid connections in every spot we went to and played with some really cool bands along the way that we will hopefully play with again soon.
I would say having gone now twice through Iowa, Iowa has been an unexpected gem. I don't know if you guys have made your way through any of the spots in Iowa. Iowa City's very cool. Des Moines is very cool. There's some real underrated spots there.
Yeah.
People definitely into music in those communities. And with it being such a major crossroads, if you're out there on the road, don't forget about Iowa.
Yeah. That's like when I was out in Tulsa. It's like when you think Tulsa, you're like, oh, kind of a flyover spot. And you go there, and it's like amazing art communities.
Yeah.
And like a really like a listening audience, which is really awesome.
Yeah, there's like some of those cities in the Midwest just get really looked over, and there's definitely some strong music communities out there.
You are winning some fans in the Midwest right now.
We're trying to. We're trying to get out there since it's like in the region. We're trying to hit it pretty frequently this year, as much as we can at least.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the tour and everything like that recently, but at first I want to kind of introduce you to the audience and like get to know them. So tell me a little bit about how Whiskey Autumn. Well, actually, before I go there, let's just talk about your individual backgrounds as musicians. You know,
Sure.
what have you been doing?
Jay, you wanna
projects and
start?
stuff?
Why don't you kick it off?
I'll kick it off. Okay.
Yeah. When did you start playing the hands?
I started playing the hands at a pretty young age,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
When puberty
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
before then. Actually, I was
Oh, you
curious.
dog.
That's right. I started playing in orchestra when I was a child, still in elementary school. Played the upright bass. Was
so not
also in
originally-
choir then, and so those two things gave me a very strong classical musical foundation. And even though I wasn't necessarily as a child studying theory, you can't help but absorb it in that classical setting.
Yeah.
And then some other lessons along the way with some piano and classical guitar. Drums actually came later into the mix, but seemed the most natural to me, seemed to make the most sense. And now, even though I play other instruments and have a musical background with other things, I was saying this to somebody the other day, I can't imagine performing as anything but a drummer. Even being a bassist, even knowing how to play keys or guitar or anything like that, drums, and you could relate to that.
I know. I mostly have the feeling because I don't know how to do anything else.
Right. Okay. Well, then you're a drummer by default. But even so, I mean,
I have no choice. I'm
All right.
trapped.
And then I'd say, as far as my own musical background, with drums in particular, the thing that led me, I think, to drums that much more, or were a jump starter, a catalyst, were things like hip hop and DJ Shadow's introducing, and just hearing how important a beat was, but also how sometimes a very simple backbeat with lush orchestrations, these types of things were really fundamental to me. And hip hop, I would say, is a huge thing for me as a drummer.
Yeah.
Greg?
Cool. Yeah. Well, I started playing music when I was 8 years old. My mom made me take piano lessons, and I hated her for it at the time, because it's like so uncool to be like, oh yeah, I'm practicing piano, and your friends are playing football.
It's always piano.
Yeah, it's always piano,
always
which seems
piano.
like it. Like your mom is like, chicks are gonna dig it someday. Just be patient. But you're
Listen, son, I know you're not going to be an athlete.
you're super clumsy. There's no way you're making the basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so I started playing piano, and then I wasn't super serious. I played in middle school band. I played the saxophone, and then I started playing guitar when I think turned 13. And somewhere in middle school or high school, I realized that you could just start learning how to play songs that you wanted to play that weren't just from lesson books. I don't know why it took me that long to realize that, but somewhere when I was 15, I was like, oh cool, I can just look up a guitar tab or just find some sheet music or something and play something I dig. And I just started to fall in love with melody, and then I became interested in writing songs, and then I just started trying to write songs in high school, and then
You caught the bug.
caught the bug. That's right. That's what's up.
And last but not least, Jason.
Well, I was a bit unlucky getting into music a few times. I was super into the idea as a little kid, watching it on TV and everything, and begged my parents to get me an instrument for years, and I was a clumsy child, so they thought that was not the wisest decision to invest in an instrument. But something happened when elementary school rolled around, and they saw that you can get one from the school with limited repercussions if something went wrong,
Yeah.
So I begged for a saxophone, and apparently I didn't have the lips for that, so they handed me a trombone, the sexiest of all
Yes.
instruments, and played that for quite a few years. But then my cousin, who we actually stayed with out in Iowa, taught me how to play some guitar chords, and I was like, wow, you can actually play songs you enjoy. Great. And started playing in bands and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So let's just bring it all the way forward then to Whiskey Autumn. So, Greg, I know it started as pretty much just your writing a bunch of songs, right? It's, I guess on your Facebook you code it as a bedroom project.
Yeah. So I was writing songs initially, like I said, in high school, and without really much of a direction. And then somewhere along the way, the name Whiskey Autumn came to be. It was just trying to think of a project name, and once that happened, it really was oh, I can focus on this one project. And
Is there any story behind that name, or did it just kind of one of those sounds cool?
It was just kind of one of those things that invoked an image, and it sounded cool. It just rolled off the tongue nicely. I was playing, mostly acoustic music at that time, and it seemed to fit that really nicely at that moment too.
So is it originally your name for a solo project?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I recorded a record in my bedroom when I was in college at the time, and called Until the End of Days, and that was like the first official Whiskey Autumn release that came out, a few years ago. And then after that, the band, I didn't want to keep just playing like singer-songwriter solo stuff. I was really always heard a more expanded sound. I just didn't have people that I knew that played those other instruments, so I really started to seek that. Along the way, started going to the No Name bar in Boulder and met Maddie, who was playing drums in a band at that time called Time and Temp. And he just sat in one day because I was kind of casually playing with this other dude on drums, and he couldn't make it to a gig, so I asked Maddie if he wanted to join in for the night, and he did, and people really dug it. And so then Maddie and I just decided, to officially invite him into the band.
Yeah, and early on, even it's interesting to you think about any band has development and growth and change and thinking. We still play a lot of those songs from that first record that you recorded. But to hear those and think back to, I'm going to sit in with this band, I kind of know these guys, we'll see how it goes. And hearing these songs that didn't have drum beats, so I could bring whatever style of rhythm I wanted to.
Put
This
your own
was
signature on it.
That's right. It was a really liberating thing as a drummer to not have to hear tunes and think, okay, well, I've got to do this fill just like so-and-so did, or I've got to make sure that the feel is the same. And as long as the melody is there and as long as the narrative doesn't get lost, sometimes you make a tune into an R&B or a soul song almost because, for me as a drummer, it feels that's where it feels like it should go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we've had these things that have now led us to where the sound is today, where these sonic ideas begin, as most musical ideas do, in your bedroom. And you're thinking about something, you're at the piano or a guitar or something like that. But then once you bring it to somebody else and once you have that collaborative connection, then it starts to take on some sort of other sound, some other direction.
Oh yeah, it was like at that point I could start writing songs specifically knowing that I would play it as a band immediately, instead of well, this could sound cool with a band one day, but right now I'm just by myself, so this is what I can do.
Right.
So you start writing with other members specifically in mind for parts or beats that Maddie's,
knowing that part will exist.
Yeah, it will exist, or knowing how he will tend to play the drums or something. I could be this, I could already kind of hear what he might want to do with this, and it just helps push you in a more specific direction.
So Jason, when did you join the band?
I joined just about getting on a year and a half ago now. I followed a Craigslist ad, and it didn't go to a bad place for once.
Geez, that sounds like you have some weird story with that.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's Craigslist.
Yeah, we were in need of a new bass player because we had parted ways with our previous bass player, and we just put basically an anonymous Craigslist ad up, where it was just band looking for bass player. And we really had low hopes.
Meet in alleyway.
Yeah, meet in the alleyway. Make sure you have a mustache. And
Come alone.
But yeah.
So is it now a multi-writer process, or Greg, are you still taking the helm on a lot of this writing?
I still take the helm on the writing, at least, for the basic song structure, melodies, and lyrics and everything, that comes still specifically from me, but then the overall arrangement we work on together as a band. So I don't come in and be Maddie, you have to play the drums this way. Sometimes I might have a strong suggestion, but it's usually still an open-ended question when the song comes in right after I'm done writing it, and we start molding it further and tightening it up.
Some things inevitably, again, as you're working on things by yourself, this is why no matter what type of art you're in, you always need collaboration. You always need somebody to look at your painting and tell you if it's shit or not. You need somebody to read through a chapter of your book and help you maybe, tighten up some things or edit certain things. And oftentimes it's in that initial process where the song is still really fresh. And because there's no definitive way it's done, even if it was done to a click track or to a metronome, or you have some sort of 4-on-the-floor thing in mind, maybe the 4-on-the-floor thing works for the chorus, and we find a way through 3 or 4 hours of flushing it out that we're going to actually utilize this one part of it, but we've actually built or, again, edited it. Having that collaborative thing, that that cross-reference of ideas, as opposed to like you said, coming in like a taskmaster and saying, no, it has to be this way, and I've already got the idea for it. It's like, well, who knows? You know, we have so many instruments and all have such unique backgrounds and overlaps with our backgrounds that it would almost be silly to not, like, JP, do you have an idea for this? Like, I can't wait to, again, I can't wait to see what my bandmate's going to do with this.
Well, yeah, I mean, on your Facebook page, I had to write this down. You have your influences as the Beatles, Jay Dilla, The Cure, Dr. Dre, and Prince.
Heavy hitters, dude.
I know, like, kind of all corners of the map, but you guys, like, kind of find that way to, like, bring a little, like, each of those spices in.
Yeah, we have, like, a kind of an eclectic music taste, and we recently really have just been trying to combine that and, like, blend it all together and make it something that feels unique to us, even though we're still, pulling from lots of influences across the board.
Well, that's definitely clear on Ice Cream in the Sun, your most recent. Would you say it's an album or an EP? Because it's only it's
an EP, yeah. So it's 5 songs. It's like about 20 minutes. So I think that falls within the EP range. But yeah.
So a question I had, because we were talking before we sat down, we were kind of talking about the love of albums and the whole picture. So you guys, as a band, have had 3 EPs.
So yeah, there's like that first full length I recorded was just in that solo record, like acoustic, and then as a band we've
that's
had
like
3
that's
EPs.
11 songs, right? That's
there's like 11 songs in that, and then after that we had like I think 2 4-song EPs, and then the one now is 5.
Yeah.
And we love albums too, and we really do want to record an album just as an independent band. We're trying to put out music like once a year, ideally, and being on the road a lot, there's only so much time and money we have to record, so we just kind of took a manageable chunk and we're like, let's make this really strong and get it out, and then later this year we'll hit the studio again and kind of do the same thing.
Well, with that, I was gonna say, like, since it is such a small, it's a quality, not a quantity kind of thing, right there.
Yeah,
that's right.
How do you go about, like, because I'm sure you're writing songs all the time, like you're always processing. When it comes to these like smaller recording sessions, how do you think of the whole project, or do you just think like these songs are the best ones? Like do you think of the whole album or just the best songs on it?
For Ice Cream in the Sun, it was thinking about the whole album as a whole and like making a really cohesive sound across the board on the record. For the 2 previous EPs for the band, it was a moment of like finding the best songs we had at that time as a band and kind of laying those down. But yeah, for Ice Cream in the Sun, we like knew going in, we're like, all right, this is the sound we're going to do. These are the songs that work for that. I can write like 1 or 2 more specifically for that. And it was cool to approach it that way.
I think another thing early on just is a good thing to mention here. Recording for us, once it became a 3-piece band and we started going and attacking it as these smaller chunks, these EPs, we made an agreement, whether we actually talked about it and shook on it or anything, but we made an agreement that another one of our major influences is, are the Beach Boys. And we just said that we'd like to make every song like Good Vibrations. And if it's just the one song and it's just that song, if it takes that long, it's Good Vibrations. It's epic. It's a timeless pop masterpiece. And that's not to say that
we're hit every song.
You can't hit every song like that.
This album's taken 35 years.
But in terms of density, in terms of layers, in terms of production trickery, we want to really explore as much as we can within a 3 or 4 minute pop song.
It's like each song's a science project almost.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely with the recent stuff. You were talking about collaboration earlier while writing, Greg. That seems to be coming along a long way with recent stuff where we are building songs together sometimes.
That's true.
Going real deep in the studio with that stuff.
Yeah, sometimes, because I'm the most skilled at the percussion-based stuff, and Greg is the most skilled on pianos and guitars, and Jason, JP's the most skilled with the bass. If each one of us at any given time on any given song is tracking a part, it's so beneficial and helpful to have somebody else hit the cue button and talk to you and say, hey, let's try it like this, and sing you a little part or beatbox you a little part that you can then try to track. And it's actually really exciting to see, as you were saying, a part kind of come out of nowhere where a little riff or a little something, and it's like, oh, let's really explore that, and then we delve deeper, and sometimes you kind of swing and miss, but more times than not, even those times where you kind of dig deep and it doesn't work out, it's a lesson learned for the next time, for another part, for another section on another song.
What song do you think is the best one to example that? The ones that you like really just played around with, left no stone unturned kind of thing with it.
Human Frailty, the first single from the new album, Ice Cream in the Sun, was definitely like that, where we came in, we really rehearsed just like what we could do as a 3-piece, just to like lay the basic track down, like, you know, each like basically one drum part. I was just playing keys and singing, and Jason was playing the bass. We laid that down, and then after that it was like, okay, what we could like deconstructed it basically and started like building up all these other parts, and really like the song came together as a recording, like 100% in the studio and not really, you know, at home like workshopping it.
Yeah, which is another interesting newer development for us, where so many of the other tunes, and you even pointed it out on the other EP, and then going back to the very first record Greg has, is we have recordings, and you know this as a band, being in bands, is once you have recordings, those become in a lot of ways your concrete example of how to play the song. And if you're ever unsure of what did I do there, or just to play along with maybe as a little self-practice rehearsal kind of thing, once you have it concretely recorded, that's how you do it. And so many of our tunes developed on stage, and then we took them to the studio. Human Frailty, we never showed anybody until it was time to put the record out.
Does that make it harder then?
It was different in a lot of ways.
It was weird because it wasn't weird, but it was like a process where we learned how to play it to record it. Then we recorded it. Then we listened back and we're like, okay, we have all these like different parts now, and we have to relearn how to play it live to best present the record, you know, on stage.
Yeah, we suddenly, some of those parts that we were coming up with felt like they were indispensable. We couldn't do without them. This little synthesizer thing that you're doing, oh, you have to do that. And we get so into it, and suddenly Greg's like got his arms crisscrossed over keyboards, like hitting a guitar with an elbow, and I'm trying to like reach across with my legs to different drum things so I can trigger this thing. JP's singing while playing the bass with his left hand, playing the other. Yeah, it's so sometimes we've not shot ourselves in the foot, but we've built this composition and this song in particular up in a way that it made it a challenge, but a really exciting challenge to now do it live.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, like when you're layering all this stuff on the song, because I listened to it and there is like, it's a real, you wouldn't know it's just a 3-piece. Right.
You
know, like there's a lot going on in it. So does that, since your live show is also such a big element of, you know, Whiskey Autumn, like is that in your mind when you're recording? Because you're like, oh wow, this sounds amazing, but I don't think we could pull it off live because there's, you know, 5 synth parts in it. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely in our mind, and I think for like the live show, it's about finding like the most essential part that someone is going to hear on the record and be like, I want to hear that live now, and like making sure that's going to be there.
Because we've all had that process where we see a band and they like play your favorite song, but it's like, it
doesn't have that.
It's
one
not
thing.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, so when we play live, we've just tried our hardest for these new songs to be able to recreate them in a way where it's going to obviously be different than the record, but hopefully not so different that you're turned off by it because your favorite part of the song seems missing.
I don't think we ever like compromised in the studio though either at the same time.
No, that's
we
true.
Definitely had it in mind the whole time, like, oh, I'm gonna have to find a way to play that, but it never stopped us from, you know.
Yeah, we still pretty much just went for it with like what we thought would best serve the record.
I think you always have to approach a record, being in the studio as one animal, and performing live as a totally separate thing. And the point of, you know, when you see somebody huge, somebody that you're really into, and this quintessential tune that you know of theirs, and they don't have that little lick because there's only 3 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you're going to see some big, huge band, I could see a certain level of, oh, I can't believe they didn't do that thing. But for us, I mean, certainly some people know us and some people know our songs, but I think we're still doing it, doing the song justice. We're not holding anything back, and it would take really acute ears to even be able to say, oh, well, I can't believe Greg didn't play that one little thing there. You know, it's still such a new and fresh record and new and fresh song, and we've played it so limited, in such a limited capacity already up to this point that I don't know. I don't think we're selling any. We're not selling ourselves short by having to play less because we're only a 3-piece. You know what I mean?
Well, it's almost like you're doing 2 different versions of the song.
Yeah, in some ways, for sure. Yeah, the live version definitely takes on its own thing. And as with any band, I feel like when you start playing songs like well after they've been recorded, they start to evolve even still. And there's still then changes that just end up happening and kind of just becomes its own living thing.
I personally don't believe a song's ever really done.
Yeah, it's totally. I agree.
But like, so we've been talking about your live shows and stuff. So I wanted to ask a quick, like, what would you say what is the signature of a Whiskey Autumn live show? Because you guys got some dates coming up all over Colorado with the Fox show coming up later in May.
Yeah, we try to bring full emotional, like we put our full selves or full being into the songs, and we harmonize a lot together. So there's a lot of singing. On the record, it was just me doing all the vocals, and live, all 3 of us sing. So the vocals kind of take on a different spin. And we, stylistically, I think live we can, run the gamut a bit more and like play into all those influences that we, talked about a bit ago, which might not all come through on this record. But at a live show, we'll play like the stuff that harkens back to the early 60s doo-wop up into R&B influenced synth pop.
You're going to hear a lot of songs too.
Yeah,
a lot of concise songs.
Yeah, we'll play a lot. We usually try to fit as many songs in as we can.
What's like the average like number, do you think?
When we do like 45-minute sets, we probably play about 10 songs.
Damn.
But the 3-hour shows?
Yeah, sometimes, some of these mountain gigs we play are like 3 hours, and you probably have to burn through like 30 to 35 songs.
Oh, I mean, we just played the Mercantile in Jamestown, one of our favorite little spots in Colorado, and it's an 8 to 10 show, and I think we played 27 songs.
Jeez.
Something like that.
And then
So I think there were 25 on the set list, and then we did an encore, but we cut 2 songs. So 23 songs in a 2-hour set.
Yeah.
It's funny because then you'll see some like jam bands and they have like 4 songs.
Yeah. We like most of our songs are written with like a pop structure in mind, so they tend to be like 3 to 4 minutes, maybe a few that are like 5 or 6, but we don't really have any like 10-minute freak out jams.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're having trouble playing just ahead with all those instruments.
Yeah, that's true. We could just just JP switch over to the synth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't even have to have a gym membership at that point. You're just running around.
Just running around stage.
All right, as we wrap this up, I just want to say what is in the future for you guys right now? Because you've got to finish up the first part of your Ice Cream in the Sun tour, bringing you all over Colorado down to Taos.
Yep.
What's gonna happen after that?
We're doing another Midwest tour in June. We're going to have some Denver dates in July that we are going to be announcing very soon, hopefully in the next week or 2. And then, we'll definitely be touring in the fall. Maybe we've talked about going up to the Northwest, but we'll see how that goes. Definitely making our way around the same places we've been hitting early in the year, and then hit the studio in the winter to have another album or EP ready for next year, hopefully.
But also more immediately, we have a Fox show coming up as well.
Yep, the Fox coming up on May 26th. It's going to be dope.
Word, so you guys are you're like really hitting 2017 hard. You're making it year to year.
We're trying to do it. We're doing our best at least. Yeah, we're giving it a real shot.
Yeah, we're also in kind of some earlier stages of putting together another video for Human Frailty.
Yeah, hopefully that will be filming in the next month or so. We've been just finalizing the script for it currently with the director.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys are on to good stuff. Ice Cream in the Sun is available everywhere you can listen to music.
That's right.
Guys, thank you for coming out. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Super stoked for the Fox.
Thanks, man.
I'll see you later.
You're moving on, you don't have the time for simple songs. We've been drifting a little further every day, lost in outer space. Each night since you've been gone, there's no one around. down round